Rahim, June 6th, 2021. There was a question by Sidi Yasir from Germany who asked the Shaykh. He said, as I was reading the wird, I saw myself enter into God's light, which whelmed the horizons beyond spatiality, and I approached a presence of divine beauty, which first took on the form of color red, followed by color green, and there was a black hole in the center. I felt the inspiration to ascend into the heavens. The Shaykh comments, this concerns the latest stage of the readings of the divine name. It's a good sign. The colors are the beautiful names of God, and all of God's names are light, because God is light, Allahu Nur. The light, Al-Nur, is therefore an all-comprehensive name of God. It's Ismun Jami', and it refers to the divine essence. When God's light discloses itself, it is as though all the names disclose themselves. When An-Nur is manifest, there is no question of reference to any other particular name, because An-Nur is above all the names. Hence the verse of light, Allahu Nuru Samawati wal Ard, God is the light of the heavens and the earth, a light that is above all other lights. The other lights, such as particular or specific lights of specific names, such as the name al-Qawi, the strong, or the light of the name as-Sami', the hearing. The light of God itself, or in and of itself, is beyond description, image, form, or shape. All of what we've said applies also to the name Allah itself. We speak of the letters that show us the name, but we do not speak of the name in and of itself. This is one of the meanings behind the verse, recite or read through or in the name of thy Lord. Iqra' bismi rabbika. Not Iqra' bismillah. It doesn't say read in the name of Allah, but read in the name of the Lord, because this name cannot be read. The name of Allah is hidden within the name the Lord, Ar-Rabb. So it's the name of the name. So when we do speak of the name Allah, and we pledge allegiance to Allah, how do we see this light? How does it appear to us when He casts it into our hearts? It appears in the glass of the lamp of the names, not in a particular attribute. We could not possibly bear the light directly. Take the verse وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. We taught Adam all the names. Adam alayhi salatu wasalam carried the trust, al-amana, of the light of all those names, and through them he knew God's light, the name and the essence. So when we enter into the Pledge of Allegiance, this light is cast into our hearts and meets them through the glass of the light of the names. So color white is the name al-Awwal, the first. Dark red is the name the giver of death, al-Mumit. Light red is the trace of the name al-Muhib, the lover. These disclosures of light, they interpret the name through self-disclosures within the spiritual realm, within the Malakut. We must read the names and attributes of God through this light, and this light itself will bring us to direct knowledge, ma'rifah, of His essence. We cannot describe the light itself, so we speak of it through the attributes of the glass that reflects it, thereby giving us a particular divine name. Over the particular light that we witness relates to our particular station vis-a-vis God. So if the color red of Al-Mumit, the giver of death, discloses itself to us, how should we receive it? We should receive it by reference to its effect. We annihilate our attributes, our states, until nothing of them remains. Then we shall enter upon the name Allah through the door al-Mumit. The other color that this brother saw in his vision is the color green. The color green is not a particular or a specific name. Rather, it's a collectivity of the beautiful names of God, not the majestic names of God. It's Jam'iyyatul Asma' al-Jamaliyah. Adam learnt these names in paradise, hence the green of the garden. Now your place in paradise pertains to deeds you did which relate to particular names of God. Note the hadith, he who counts all the names or reckons all the names shall enter the garden. Man ahsaha dakhal al-jannah. Counting or reckoning these names by deeds that manifest themselves. In other words, the actions that you perform are externalizations of the disclosures which you witness, and it is through that you count the names and thereby enter the garden. So this green is green. It's the all-comprehensiveness of the divine names. It's the dome of the Prophet ﷺ, which is green. The Rawda Sharifa is green. The meadow of paradise, which is the space between the Prophet's grave and his pulpit, that's a greenery, and so on. So the brother saw that he entered into light, which is white, the name, the first, al-awwal. Then he enters upon the color red, al-Mumit, the giver of death, and then green, which is the collectivity of the names. If you activate these names with righteous action, you will attain knowledge of the all-comprehensiveness of the names in the myriad of colors of the glass from name to name. In every moment you will become acquainted with names, and you will bring them down with your righteous deeds, and you will see the disclosures of the traces of God and become annihilated in the names, the attributes, and the essence will manifest to you. Names therefore give you knowledge, and the essence gives you intimate converse, munajat, and supplication, dua, and a connection with God, as well as a deep love and desire for an eternal prostration before the divine presence. There was also a question from Sidi Mohamed from Spain, who said that during Bay'ah, during the Pledge of Allegiance, I saw as if I entered into a long black tunnel. There was darkness within the tunnel, but I was flying through it at the speed of light, until I find myself standing in the heavens, full of brilliant stars. There were large white rings that came at me, and they went over my head and down around me past my feet, like a loop dropping onto a peg. These rings of light repeated 5 or 7 times. Then I saw a star-shaped necklace with many heads of silver or of light, I can't remember, but someone put that necklace around my neck. Comments. This vision that you had during the Pledge of Allegiance also relates to the verse of light, Ayatul Nur. We just spoke about the first words, God is light, Allahu Nur. And now here we are in the next part, as it were, of the verse of light. He is the light of what? The light of the heavens and the earth. The tunnel is the ocean of darkness upon darkness. Dhulumat fawqa dhulumat. If you took out your hand, you would barely see it. As the verse of the Quran says, Lam yakad yaraha. When God gave you the opening, the Fath, the distance was rolled up for you, and you passed through the tunnel in the blink of an eye. Then you came to the heavens, stars that God gave us to guide us upon the spiritual path. By the stars they are guided. بِالنَّجْمِ هُمْ يَهْتَدُونَ. Stars of guidance to the way of God. The one in darkness wishes to be out of it, to save himself in this world, so he doesn't have to endure it again in the next life. Our desire to save ourselves and enter into the light is described in Surah Al-Hadid. يَوْمَ تَرَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. On the day you will see the believing men and women with their light shining before them and on their right. Glad tidings for you this day. Gardens beneath which rivers flow, therein to abide. That is the supreme triumph. On that day, the hypocrite men and women will say to those who believe, "Wait for us, that we may glean something of your light." It will be said, "Turn back and seek light." Then they will be separated by a wall with a gate with mercy on its inside, while its outside faces toward torment. Now this light will be visible, not just metaphysical or metaphorical. Glad tidings for you this day, gardens. This is what the Quran proclaims. So the one without a light has no garden. As for the hypocrites, the people of darkness, for even the hypocrite is a Muslim in a certain sense because he pays lip service to Islam. On that day, the hypocrite men and women will say to those who believe, "Wait for us, that we may glean something of your light." They want a brand of God's light to guide them. Turn back to the world and seek God's light is the response they receive. Those in this world who see God's light are those who understand this verse and seek the light in the here below before the hereafter, so that on that day they will find it in their hearts before them and on their right. The hypocrites do not see this light or pay account to it, but on that day they will realize it and ask the believers for it, and the believers will direct them to where it is found. This light is sought from the family of the Prophet ﷺ. This light is purity. It's the collectivity of the names, the source of the names and attributes. So they seek it from those whose hearts God purified, so that light settled within them. They sought that light and entered the presence of nearness. So on that day, the light shines ahead of them and to their right. God gives them tidings that they will enter the trace of this light, which is paradise. Gardens, Jannat, disclosures of the light that you bore in your hearts and which you saw shining ahead of you. As for the hypocrites, they did not make this effort or have this sincerity or certitude. They engaged in action for reward, not for their deeds to be lifted by the luminescence of action to the Lord of action. They might become annihilated in Him in every moment. They just wanted the reward. So their deeds do not weigh anything. They are bare, dry, and dead. So they're told, "Turn back and seek light," قِيلَ ارْجِعُوا وَرَاءَكُمْ, which would show you the reality of action. This light is taken from this world. The tunnel is where you worked in the world for recompense. Then you sought the people of purity and sought light from them. And they taught you how your action may be ascended to the Lord, as you strove to count all the names, to do what the hadith calls إحصاء الأسماء. When God raised you with this light to His presence, and you found there this light, and saw how your deeds are righteous because of the traces of the names, you took purity from the Ahlul Bayt, the Prophet's family. You engaged in Tawheedul Asma', proclaiming the oneness of the divine names, and you commenced upon Tawheedu as-Sifati wa-Dhat, proclaiming the oneness of the attributes and the divine essence. Your world is no longer a dark tunnel, For the horizons of light appeared to you, and this darkness became twinkling stars. Even your knowledge was darkness, if it was not from the book and the Sunnah. And now you are guided in all your affairs. If you follow this guidance, you will ascend to the heavens of light, and God will forgive you your sins, so you will no longer be asked about your sins. As per the verse, فَإِذَا انشَقَّتِ السَّمَاءُ, and when the heaven is cleft and becomes a flower like red hide. Which of your Lord's boons will you two deny? On that day no man shall be asked about his sin, nor shall any jinn. Surah Ar-Rahman, verses 37 through 39. Now the rings of light that passed around you, the entire heaven is like a ring thrown down upon an open expanse. كَحَلَقَ فِي فَلَاتٍ, as the Prophet ﷺ describes the first heaven in relation to the second. So it is like this faqir traversed a heaven, then another, upwards toward the highest presence of God, not for the purpose of discovering the contents of these heavens, but to become nearer to God. The faqir describes 5 to 7 rings of light. These are the 7 heavens. Regardless of whether it was 5 or 7, it signifies stability. It could actually be repeated thousands or millions of times, always increasing you in light, in honor, and nearness to God. Each time God replenishes you with the luminescence of His names. The madad, the replenishment, this is the rope from heaven to earth. And what you're describing is the very definition of madad. The star-shaped necklace, you cannot count its heads, meaning its points. The star here is a gemstone, a glass shape with many points or angles. You say it's either silver or light. You might say its light is silvery, and someone hung it around your neck. This is the result of how you pass through those rings of the heavens, which give you a glass of the beautiful names of God. The number of its points is the number of the names of God. You strove, you exerted effort, and you worked on the path, and so God honored you. This is the path. It's not about studying Sufi books and encountering complicated technical terms and then bothering us with questions about them that have already been discussed for centuries. That's useless. This is about traversing, directly tasting, and experiencing disclosures, and then I will explain to you what God has already cast into your heart, and nothing more. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد.